need to stop putting that pressure on the process, because you'll look at everything with a fine-tooth comb too much. You'll look for reasons why he or she can't be right, or why they are similar to the ones that have failed in the past. So you need to remove that sort of emphasis on, we have to get this right, okay, and just focus on the process, on the methodology, which is, why do you need this person? What specifically do you need? Let me go and actually identify and attract these people for you.
I didn't want to admit it to myself,
Yeah.
and I was still giving them chances, and that was really wrong, because the ones that they were actually very good performance, they've seen, okay, like, why this person is still here, we're like around, and I wasn't seeing what they were seeing, and it actually caused a lot of damage that I had to go and fix, so that's why I'm saying, like, people's department, or like in general managing individuals in startup, and I believe maybe not just startup, any business, it's the hardest part. And if you do it right, you can excel, and if you do it wrong, it can destroy your business.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Steering Success. Our next guest is a founder of a fintech business and a leader in the industry, Ibtissam Ouassif. In this episode, we are covering the intricacies of running and building a fintech in this region. We discuss the importance of a strong recruitment process and her growth as a leader. And we hear her perspective of the movement of women leaders and founders in business in the region. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. I've been looking forward to this conversation, because I've known you now for two and a half years. I think when the business was very, very young, in its sort of early stages, you were in JLT, I think.
We were in JLT, and we just hired our first employee, I think.
Yeah, and that was
yes.
That was the gateway to sort of working together, right?
Yes, it was. And I think with you, we hired our second and third and fourth employee.
Yeah, it went on for a while.
It went for a while, yes.
Nice.
Until this year, so.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I'd like to start with just some, the basic cheesy sort of questions about the sort of buy now, pay later space, right? So, how did you find yourself in this position? Your background's very partnerships, sales, that sort of industry, right, with the MCC and so forth. How did you find yourself into a buy now, pay later as a co-founder and a chief product officer?
Sure. So, since I moved to the UAE, which was about 10 years ago right now, in 2013, yes, I started first in the MCC. We worked in their partnerships and outreach arm in order to attract more businesses. And one of the areas was startups and financial services, startup fintechs, in partnership with Astrolab. So I got to know about that word very early on. I liked it. I was fascinated by it. And then life went by, and I found that myself working on financial services and payments. Yes, in the business development side. I worked for MBME, which is now a public company listed in Abu Dhabi. The role there was working with governmental entities, as well as banks and other payment service providers, enabling the payment layer for bill payments, for example. That's one of the projects I worked on, and that opened my eyes to the payments world and how complicated it is from an infrastructure perspective and technological perspective. So it got me thinking. I started working a lot with the product team in that company at that time, and I was fascinated by the work that they were doing, and I got very interested in technological aspect, and I slowly moved in being also collaborating also with them in the product setup itself. So that's when I started my journey in the product development as well, and I moved sort of from business development. And I also believe product in general, the product department can be actually divided in different areas. There is technical product managers, for example. There is a marketing-led product, or there is business-led product. So for me, I see myself in the sales-led or product growth area, right? And so from there, then I moved into working for the financial institution itself, and I worked in product development. I started working very closely with tech teams in developing products from scratch, and they were mainly credit cards or digital lending products. And while doing research for that specific digital lending product for that institution, I came across Klarna. And I was very fascinated by Klarna because it had all this creative design. It was pink and black.
Yeah.
You could never think about financial institution having that type of branding. And I started researching about them and their growth and their story. And then I started thinking, okay, why don't we have a service like this in the UAE, for example? At that time, I was 27 years old. I was like, this is definitely a product I would use, for example, for shopping online and all of that. And I actually proposed that product to the financial institution I was working with. And they were like, it's not regulated here. They were very much focused on credit cards. Credit cards make a lot of money. And credit card penetration in the EU is very high.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they didn't want to disrupt that specific layer that was existing already by introducing products like buy now pay later was not thought of at that time. So I was like, okay, I kept my research paper. I had a BRD prepared. Everything was there. And then I met some folks right after that they were building technology and they were building like software for banks and as well as digital lending products. And they were from the US. So they had that mentality in terms of already knowing very well buy now, pay later, or payday loans or pay later in general. So and then I was like, okay, I've worked on this and there isn't anything like that in the UAE nor in the GCC altogether. So I was like, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we launch the company ourselves? So obviously at that time, we didn't know how it's going to be in terms of from the regulatory aspect. It's something it's going to be possible, permissible to do because buy now pay later was not regulated by then and it's a sort of lending, short-term lending, let's say. So it has to be regulated. But we were surprised to see that actually the regulatory bodies in the UAE were very open-minded in terms of, okay, let's test this product in terms of like sandbox environment, even that we were watched very closely, but they let us innovate and that was amazing. And so that's how Cashew started. And that's how our products was launched in the UAE. And since then, it's been like now almost 3 years. The adoption has been very great. The growth has been amazing. And we've seen it also with other buy now pay later companies because it was not just Cashew at that time. Were 4 or 5 companies that were born at the same time. That gives you an overview in the terms of, yes, it was a product that was much needed in the market. And the adoption was still great, even though there was so many there are not that many, to be honest, 3 or 4 compared to was the market. The time in the market is really high. So yeah, it was really exciting. And
do you think that was the fear or the sort of disbelief that it would be regulated easily? Was that the main driver behind it taking so long to come to the region? I mean, I moved here 8-9 years ago, and one of the first questions I was asking is, why isn't there any sort of, buy now, pay later, scattered payments, whatever it was? I think my second year here, MSMBD created that sort of interest-free payments on your credit card if you bought something from Apple or something like that, right, for like 6 months. But do you think many people had a similar idea to yourself, and the thing that was stopping them was, how are we going to regulate this in this part of the world when it's just so archaic with their processes with the banks? Was that the major sort of roadblock?
I think so. Whenever you think about financial services here, you think, okay, about the regulation, about the regulatory, but they're very strict, obviously, for consumer protection reasons, and so on and so forth. So, and because also it's a very small market and we already have a lot of banks competing for the same piece of
Too many banks. We can say it.
Right? So it wouldn't have made sense, I think, from that aspect, looking at these two reasoning, let's say, these two players, let's say the bank themselves and as well as the regulatory bodies. But I think we proved everyone to be wrong because I think the thing about buy now pay later is because it's at the checkout, it's not really cash handed over to consumers. So it made it much easier. Because if it was cash handed over to consumer, like in the terms of a micro loan, I think we'd have been much harder to launch a product this way. But it's because it's more of like a payment instrument. It's embedded within the checkout journey. It's at the checkout. The consumer does not touch this money. It gets transferred directly to the merchant, and the consumer pays back through credit card or a debit card instrument. So I think it made it much easier in terms of how it was set up.
What research goes into determining whether or not this is the right place for it, apart from the fact that it's not here, okay, and there could potentially be an appetite because of the high spending in retail and malls and so forth, right? What other research do you need to do as a founder of a business to be able to say, this is where we need to be, this is where we need to launch our product?
I think it depends a lot on the demographics that you want to go after. I feel it starts from there. Like, who do I want to serve, right? Who's my ideal customer? How does he look like or she like, right? So based on that, you can determine, okay, this is the right market for that product or not. Because let's say, for example, I'm targeting someone that makes between, 15,000 dirhams to 25,000 dirhams. They have some disposable income. They're in their early 30s. They're about to get married, have children, and obviously they want to move to a new house. They want to buy furniture. They want to do this. They want to do that. So that's your target audience, and you know that actually in the UAE it's a big demographic within that bracket, right? There's a lot of expats move here, looking for a job to start their life, start a family. It's very safe and all of that. So that's one big denominator, right?
Yeah.
Looking at the demographics. So, and similar, let's say if I was building a product for a low-income demographic, which is blue-collar workers or someone with a 0 to 3,000 dirhams income. Also, this is a huge demographic here for like the WPS and all of that. Like, and I believe that's still untapped and still underserved. Yeah. So, but if I was to look at the products that are for the 1%, I don't know, membership clubs and all of that, I would say it's a saturated market for that, because it's a very small demographic. I would go to the US, for example, or the UK or somewhere else where that demographics counts for a big piece of pie. So I think there is a lot of things that you look at. So number one, yes, who is your consumer that actually is going to consume your product and utilize your services? And then yes, the regulatory framework when it comes to specific type of products or services like financial services. And I think also next would be, okay, the talent that is available in the market to build that specific product, right? I feel like here we're very lucky. There is a great pool of talent when it comes to tech. We're very much technologically advanced in terms of people understanding technology, building technology, integrating technology. Adoption also of technology here is very high. If you look at smartphone penetration, internet, and all of that. So I think all of these denominator makes a successful story when it comes to adoption in any product or service.
It's good to hear you talk about the sort of tech and the tech adoption here in this part of the world. Do you think now, though, considering the landscape of just the tech industry in general, it's becoming more and more increasingly difficult to sort of have an impact by getting the right people here on the ground in the UAE? And everyone who I'm speaking to, or the majority of them, are forced to sort of look abroad, build remote teams, or just, open up offices in different parts of the world to be able to sort of offset the costs and the challenges that you're facing in building out your sort of tech function here, and being able to deliver what you need to do on the tech side without having to compete with everybody who's after the same type of people. Has that been like a huge challenge for you in the business over the last 2 or 3 years?
Honestly, when it comes to tech, building tech teams, not much, right? Because we feel like after COVID, so Cashew was born during COVID, right? 2020. During COVID and after COVID, the world has changed in terms of how teams work together, or how teams are built and all of that. Like remote work now is at the forefront of everything. It's normal. It begins every day, right? So that helped us a lot because we were able to put teams together that come from different parts of the world, right? Some are in-house working with us at the office, mainly, for example, DevOps or security, because you want it to be controlled in-house. But the remaining team members, tech team, it could be sitting anywhere as long as it's within the same time zones, right? So, which is mainly Eastern Europe. It's perfect, like 2 hours different, 1 hour different. And it worked really well for us. When it comes to tech, we didn't have that much challenge, but we had it mainly like operations, for example, or
I think I was privy to some of those challenges operationally as well.
operations, people's team, HR. We had challenges there in finding the right talent. But I think because it's startup also, right? You need talent that goes well with an environment such as working at startups. There is a lot of talent here available, but it's mainly from corporations or consultancy and so on and so forth that wouldn't really match with the work culture of a startup. And that's why you had to, for example, maybe relocate individuals from elsewhere.
What's the major difference? Because I always find myself talking about this or being asked this question about the difference between the corporate person and the person who is the entrepreneur, the startup sort of body who just, he or she just really enjoys that environment. Are you of the belief that you can't be both? Or do you think that you can sort of switch and climatize towards being a 10-year veteran in the corporate world, and then all of a sudden you're excited about a startup and you can jump ship?
I think it depends on the individual and what's the individual plans for their lives or their career. But I think, and also depends on what stage is your startup, right? Initial stage, I think, for example, where you need a generalist. People that understand a little bit of everything and can do a little bit of everything.
Wear 3 or 4 hats, right?
Exactly. Someone that comes from a corporation has always done one single task or exactly would be very hard for them to juggle between tasks and wear different hats. Not because they don't want to, they try, but it would be really hard because it's not what they're used to. And that's why it doesn't really work with like startup at early stage.
What about the flip? What about someone who's been working in startups for the first 10 years and all of a sudden, sells his soul and then goes and work for a big bank or goes to work for a big corporation, a family group and so forth? How do you think they would go in having worked in that fast-paced, multiple hat sort of environment, then all of a sudden pigeonholed into a role, and this is your role, these are your tasks, and don't deviate from that? Would they have the same struggle?
It depends, again, who is the person and what's their plans for their careers. I think for the first 1 or 2 years, we wouldn't struggle. I think after that, they would feel like they want to break free. But at least I would believe that about myself.
We would feel that way.
We would feel that way. For example, after startup, let's say maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I might go work for a corporation. Maybe they would see me as an asset based on my past experience and what I've learned and based on what they want to build. I think I would do very well in the first 1 or 2 years. But I think maybe if it's really, if I'm really not being given creative freedom or not being given enough room to put my skills to work, I think I will feel like, okay, maybe I'm trapped. I need to go somewhere else where I can do more and I can contribute more. And again, it depends where you're in your life. Maybe at the beginning when you started startup, you were very young and you didn't mind putting in the hours and work until late at night or weekend. But now maybe 10 years from now, you have a family. So yes, you want to switch off at 6 p.m. and you want to be available to them during the weekend. So that type of setting would work very well for you. So I think there isn't one size fits all. It depends.
And that human element that you've highlighted probably 2 or 3 times just on that topic is crucial. I think we look at skill set, we look at their achievements, what they've done, and so forth, their salary expectation, do they fit within the budget? A lot of the time, recruiters, clients who are hiring neglect the fact that this is a human being who may have a wife and kids, may have a husband and kids, may have financial responsibilities and so forth. And that sometimes gets ignored or just swept aside when they are hiring, when they are making those decisions, because all they're focused on is, can he or she do the job? Can he or she add value? Not necessarily, am I creating the right environment for that person to be able to excel and stay with me for the period of time where I need them to? Do you see, have you ever felt that you've done that yourself, where you've been sort of, I just need someone in this business to do this, and if it, like, I can't look at what they come with, potential baggage or the human element of that. I just need to look at, I need to find someone for this role, and that's it. It's more of a job more than the human side of my business.
Honestly, no, because it's really hard to do that at the beginning when it's a very small team. You have to look at the human side or the baggage that that specific employee comes with, a specific person, right? Because at the end of the day, what do you want as an employer? You want someone to excel at their job and to to be able to provide or fulfill the task at hand.
Ideally,
right?
yes.
Yes. So it doesn't matter what they have at home or how is their situation or their family, or if they have kids or not, as long as when they are delivering what they're supposed to be delivering and they're excelling at their job, that's what matters. But if they're unable to deliver what they're supposed to be delivering, or they're unable to excel at their tasks at hand, and it's because there is a certain situation back or whatever, then you'll have to then think, okay, maybe that's not the right person, or maybe this is not the right job for that specific individual.
I have to ask now, because you've almost steered it that way. Like, you've been now, a co-founder of this business for a few years now. Have there been any moments, times where you thought, gee, if I had my time again, I would have managed that process better with that individual, or that conversation just went horribly wrong, and I could have handled that so much better? Have there been sort of just head scratching moments, or just head in hand sort of moments where you're just thinking, what did I do just then?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I didn't think about it right then.
Yeah.
I think of for example now, or like about 1 year ago or whatever. Of course, because I wasn't used to. I've never considered this element of starting a startup, which is managing people.
Yeah. It's a huge part of it, right?
Of course, I think maybe 60% of it.
At least.
At least. So at the beginning, it was all about, I want to build products. I want to build things. It was more about the UI, UX side, even how it looks like, the branding, and I want people to use it. I want to hear their feedback, and that's what got me to do this. I didn't think about, okay, there's going to be people that will help me build this, how I'm going to be managing those individuals. Never thought about it. And it changed as we grew. So obviously one thing is having 6-7 people sitting with you in our GLT office, working cool stuff, and our prototype and all of that was really exciting. And then as soon as we started scaling, moving into a bigger office, hiring more individuals, some individuals maybe older than me with more experience than me, so there was that dynamics at play.
Absolutely.
and I found myself learning as I went by, right? So of course I made a lot of mistakes in terms of how I managed certain people, the certain conversations that I had. If I was to go back in time, I would act differently, I would manage people differently, but I think that's a learning curve.
What's been the biggest learning? I mean, I can highlight nightmares from my experiences from 2007, 2008, when I was first given the keys to an office in Melbourne and said, this is your branch and you run it. And I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I have no idea. I'm like, okay, well, I was like a high performing recruiter that was just given the keys to management with zero training at all. And I crashed. That office shut down. Like, it was horrible, right? But the learnings were, I was trying to be everyone's best friend. I was trying to sort of be on level playing fields with them, going out with them, lunches and dinners, and just trying to motivate them that way. Watch too many sort of TV shows and like movies, thinking like I could be that cool sort of boss, without offering any guidance, without offering any insight, without offering any value to the individuals, right? Because they need to be able to come to their supervisor, manager, leader, founder, whatever it may be, and say, if I have an issue, you hopefully will have the solution for me, right? Where I was just focusing more on the relationship, on the rapport, and neglected offering them anything else, right? Is there one standout for you in your short time where you've thought, gee, this is the biggest learning curve was this?
Yeah, so for me, it was a bit opposite to you.
Okay.
For me, like it's also very transactional.
Okay.
Right? Like I'm hiring to do XYZ, I want to do the XYZ, and
that's
it. Right? So that's how it was for me with certain individuals.
It's very cold, very just like, get the job done.
Yes, I'm a very introvert person. I'm not that social. It's very hard for me to give my energy to so many people at the same time. That was really hard, right? Because there were many individuals that I had. Today I have reporting to me almost 60 people, right, at once. And it's really hard to split your energy between all of them. And each one of them has different things that motivates them. They want something different, and you have to adapt yourself to each one of them. So it's really hard for me. So how I did it at the beginning was like, this is very transactional. Like you come, this is your task, XYZ. We'll have a meeting every month. We'll review and there wasn't that element of familiarity, or like, I don't know how to explain it, right? There wasn't the human touch there.
There was no strong rapport with individuals, right?
No, there wasn't. There was with few that were there from the beginning when we were a very small team, but the
Through
ones
longevity.
that came, but the ones that came through later didn't have that relationship with them, so that didn't allow me to understand what motivates them to do whatever they do, to get them to do what I want them to do, right? So someone is motivated by recognition or money, or they want to feel fulfilled. There's so many things that motivate people. At the beginning, I thought it's just money. I'm paying you a salary. You have to show up and you have to do X, Y, Z. The way I say it,
which is standard, right?
Yes, but it doesn't really work. It depends with who, right? Some individual like that. For example, a lot of software engineers were happy with that. So that's what I knew, right? I thought that everyone wanted the same thing. So it didn't work with individual in other departments that wanted that.
That was one of the first things. So I have a mentor. I've had a mentor for, I think, 15, 16 years. The same mentor. Okay, we speak once a month, and have been for the entire time. And he's helped me through a lot of different challenges in my business. One of the first bits of advice he gave me was find out their motivators. Okay, focus on that more than anything else, especially in my environment, which is very sales driven. We are looking to sort of win clients, find candidates, transact, and so forth. Right, build partnerships. The whole thing of trying to motivate people is, okay, so why are you here? Do you want to buy a house? How much money do you need to buy a house? You need to save $50,000 for argument's sake. Okay, work it back from there. This is how many placements you need to make to be able to make that money in commissions, to be able to then go buy that house. The other person was recognition. I want to progress through my career. I want to be able to say that I've achieved from a junior consultant through to like a team lead or something like that, right? So mentors for me have always given me those little snippets that have really helped me. Do you have one? Have you ever thought of having one if you don't have one?
For sure. I had one, like more than one prior to Cashew, right? So during the time of Cashew, like during COVID and a year post-COVID, like 2020, 2021, even the half of 2022. No, I did not. I was very much focused, okay, I have to build this. And I have to build this mainly in the tech aspect of like product. These are the features I need to release. These are the products I need to build. This will take me 1 sprint, 2 sprint, 3. That's how I thought.
Wow,
and that's what I was doing.
Very programmed that way.
Yeah,
right?
I was programmed that way, and that's how I was behaving, that I was acting. Those were my goals for me, and I wanted it to be everyone else's goal. Of course, at the same time, I was taking care also the BDM partnership side in terms of like, okay, our merchant partners or our bank partners and all of that. But I had someone else managing. I was just supporting and all of that. So I didn't think about it. And that's the reason I think if I was to go back in time, I would talk to more people in terms of understanding how I can build that skill set in terms of leadership and managing people, because I didn't have it before Cashew. I managed maybe 3 people in my whole life in terms of direct reports, right? So I went from that to totally another aspect of things, like tons of people. So how to do that? So, and I didn't think about building those type of skills, like soft skills. And so now thinking about it, I should have, but obviously at that time for me it was like, okay, no, we need to get this out there. We need to ship products. We need to ship services.
Do you think the ecosystem is structured in a way where that support is there for founders, for early stage startups, for business leaders in the region, that you feel comfortable? Because I can honestly say in Australia, it is so much more difficult to network and to sort of find people that you can rely on and lean on in times of need, because everyone's very just inclusive with their groups and with their cliques and so forth. And even how you win business, like it's typically through word of mouth, and someone will open up a door for me, not necessarily just sales.
Okay.
With a product, right? Especially Melbourne. Sydney's very transactional. Melbourne's very relationship based. So coming here from Melbourne and then coming to Dubai, where everyone seems to be quite open to network, share insights and so forth, I found that I've gained a lot from working with people without working with them. You know what I mean? So I've got a lot of close friends of mine now who were once contacts, who maybe were a candidate, who maybe were a client, who are people that I speak to on a regular basis about certain things that I'm going through in business or just ideas that I might have and so forth. Have you found that there's enough there for up and coming young founders and leaders in the region to gain that sort of knowledge to be able to sort of better themselves?
Yeah, for sure. In terms of people are more open to talk to you, they're more open to support you and all of that. But I felt like at that time it was missing in the tech startup world. Right, it was in other areas,
world, right?
And that's what I'm saying. Before Cashew, I had like mentors of people that were supporting me or helping me on how to grow in my career, but in financial services in different areas. But I couldn't go back to the same people because they've never launched a startup before, so they wouldn't know what support I might need there, right? So, and I feel like now it's different, changing, because there were so many startup in the last 3-4 years. A lot of people that moved from other countries to come to the UAE or to the GCC to build startups. And they built startups before in Europe or in the US or in Eastern Europe, right? So I feel like now I met a lot of people, and I wish if I met these people before, for sure it would have helped me boost my growth or fast track my growth. But and I don't think there was and still very early stage in the startup tech world. I didn't find individuals that advice was really helpful to me. Especially considering I'm a woman, I didn't find other women that went in the same path as I was going through, or I'm still going through today, before me, that it can give me insights, or there isn't. I haven't found.
That's a great segue, because one of the other topics that I would love to talk to you about, as my first female guest, is female leadership. Female entrepreneurs, female tech leaders, all these terminologies, CCOs and things like this that have been thrown around the last 3 to 4 years. Okay, how does that sort of that movement, that wave of sort of focus on you're a female leader as opposed to a leader? What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like this movement started, I think, maybe 10 years ago or something like that, like with the boss lady type of tag, right? With the first wave of female founders, the likes of like Sophia Maruzo, she coined this term of boss girl or boss lady, whatever. And I think it helped at that time, of course, to get people to understand the issue, which female were very underrepresented, especially female founders or female entrepreneurs. But I think now we reached to a level where we have a lot of representations. Like, it's not enough, but it is a lot compared to 10 years ago. I think we should then drop this she or female entrepreneur, female founder, or whatever, because it means it under, how can I say? It actually puts you down, because it highlights that you are a woman. Why would you highlight that I'm a woman? Like, means that you believe that I have something less than the man, so you have to highlight the fact that it's a woman.
It's counterproductive, right?
Yes, it is. So I think it served its purpose back in the days, and it was great.
Paved the way.
I think now we have to move on, and if we really want equality, then we should drop those terms.
Because isn't it like a contradiction that if you are talking about equality, like all of us are, and this is what we all want. Okay, so we're never talking about the man being a male leader, a male entrepreneur, a male tech giant, a male founder of a unicorn. Once it becomes a female, the female comes in the front of it. And I'll give a perfect example. Even in football, they say the women's league. They don't say the men's league.
Exactly.
Why do they say the women's league? Just call it the football league. Allow them to be equal. Allow them to be equally represented. I mean, female football in general around the world is probably highly represented by females more than males at the moment in that teenage sort of year bracket. So why are we emphasizing on that label, that branding, which is a female, which is the one thing that we've been all trying to sort of overcome since 10 years ago by just saying, by paving the way and so forth. So I do believe it is counterproductive.
There's a lot of women today, like women entrepreneurs or women into business, that are actually advocating for dropping those terms. Because, now we're past over that. So if you want us to, as I said earlier, like if you want us to feel equal, if you want us to behave as equal or be taken as equal, then stop using these terms.
Yeah.
Because actually they're undermining us, right? You feel like, okay, well, then you're put under different lens when you use those terms.
Yeah.
So you're judged as a female founder, a female entrepreneur, rather than just an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And it happened a lot, like especially in the West, right? I feel like we have a lot of female founders or women entrepreneurs in, for example, in the US, and it happened with, for example, the founder of Glossier, which is like a makeup startup makeup brand. She did amazing, and but then she was attacked because of her way of conducting business, or because she was a female, or it was run emotionally, or all of these things that are labeled, that women are labeled for.
Yeah.
So and I think if it was a male, it wouldn't have had this much backlash, where she had to leave her own company. She had to step down in her own company, of course. And similar to Sophia, again, with Nastigal, she raised tons of money. The e-commerce brand grew so much, but then because she was a female entrepreneur or woman, she was judged by the media and by the industry because of certain decision making that she's done, and it was labeled as because she was a woman, and that was the downfall of her. Like, why? Like, we want to support, but then at the same time we're judging and pointing fingers at women entrepreneurs, and they're looked at through a different lens when something goes wrong as because they are women. So I feel there's a lot of contradiction. Especially in the Western world. Here we see less of that. I feel like here women are very much supported, to be honest. Like I grew up in Europe all my life, in Italy, and till today I still go back. My family is there, and I see the difference. Here there's really a great effort to highlight women in business and give opportunities, compared to actual Western media world, where it's all about media and all about showing that the efforts being made.
Level, right?
Exactly. Rather than that being made. Here, actually, it is happening. The women in the workforce account for almost, especially in governmental entities, almost 50%, and all of that.
That's a great point.
It's and it's happening also in the corporate, also in the private sector. So I feel we're getting there here, which is so I don't know how to label it, but I feel like here we're walking the talk. Rather than in the Western world, where it's actually just...
We're going to quote that now, right? That's going to be the tagline, the headline from this whole podcast episode. We are walking the talk,
No, it's true. I see that a lot, and I see a lot of initiatives for young female, that aspire to be entrepreneurs, or to aspire to be in leadership positions, that are being actually mentored today out of universities and schools. Like, we see that, for example, we're based one of our offices is, for example, in GFC, under the GFC Innovation Hub, and sometimes when I walk around there, I see a lot of initiatives by the DFC Innovation Hub around women mentorship and all of that. So they bring a lot of women in position of power in the private and governmental sector to come and talk to aspiring women leaders, and so on and so forth. And I think that's great. But let's remove these labels. It should be just to female helping other female, or male helping other male. That is okay. It doesn't matter if then they grow to be a leader, they are a female leader, or
female president as opposed to just the president.
Just the president, right? Why is that? Why do we have to press on the fact that it's a female or a woman?
It's the same as whether or not it's a black president, whether or not it's race, whether it's gender, right? Mm-hmm. Anything that is against the norm is typically something that is labelled. And no matter how much we try and sort of support these causes or these transformations, these changes, natural sort of instincts are to just label things because they're different, right? So that's just what it is. But it's not right, because it doesn't help. In fact, it probably stops the cause from actually moving forward, stops that movement from actually being legitimate and like real, right? Because it's still labelled that way. I mean, I had a girl in my first job in recruitment, 2002, okay? There were 16 guys, one girl in the office, okay? The girl was the biggest performer in the office, year in, year out. She had worked in a rehab clinic in London prior, so she had very thick skin. So 22 to 25-year-old boys running around the office, beating their chest, like very like sort of lad-like sort of culture. And then you have this girl who was meticulous in everything she did. Her methodology was on point, never deviated from anything. She just made money constantly. She's won clients, made placements all the time. We were swinging from the ceilings and doing cartwheels and doing, the Wolf of Wall Street type sort of life, right? Whereas she was just sitting there and focused and honed in, and she was destroying everybody. No one could understand in that moment. I understood afterwards when I walked away from that culture and realized it was the discipline, it was the ability to multitask, it was the ability to focus and not get bought into the office culture or politics, whatever it may be, because they just honed in, and that's what she was. My biggest biller in Randstad when I was working there for a few years was the biggest biller in the whole of the country. So 770 consultants. The top 3 of the top 5 billers were female. Okay. And they were dominant. And when they were given a chance to speak about their process, they weren't highlighted because they were female. They were highlighted because, how are you so successful? How are you making so much money? How are you winning so many clients? They would highlight it. I love the fact that they weren't highlighted because, look at our number one biller. She's a female. Like, it wasn't that. It was, look at our number one biller. She has generated X amount of revenue for the company. Tell us how you did it.
True.
And hers was about methodology, was about the relationships, the partnerships, and so forth. It wasn't about, I'm a female, so I sit there and I smile and I win business. That was never the case.
A lot of female are actually overachievers for various reasons. Of course, male and female have different qualities, right? So, and when you bring those qualities into the business setting, you can excel either way, right? So, I feel like we're a lot of times judged because of like, oh, we're emotion driven and all of that. But actually, there are some great emotions that is good to have that will actually,
like empathy.
They'll allow you to move forward or close deals or empathize, for example, with your clients, and I think that's overlooked a lot. And I feel like a lot of women also, because they want to prove themselves, and that's why they're overachieving, because they want to prove that they can do it, and they want you to see it, so they give 110% versus someone else that they don't have to prove anything, that it's known like that they will do whatever they're supposed to be doing. So, and I think also we tend to overestimate that actually women are, or imagine having a family and also having a job outside the household. There are 2 jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
To be honest, exactly. Right? So for women that are able to do that, to maintain a family and then have also a business or working for a corporation or having a job outside the household, that's for me, I look at that as superpowers, to be honest, right? Yeah. To be able to do both.
We struggle to do one. Right.
Exactly. Like, I feel like that, and already someone that does that and does it really well, it tells a lot. Like, and I feel like there is, and there is a lot of abilities and a lot of, how you say, personality trails that are really good to have in business from the woman's side, right? Yeah. And we see a lot of studies actually that show that. I was reading a study which like from the VC world, right? How many women founders, or how are the investments performing for women founders or women-led startups? And they show that those investments were outperforming the male counterpart, and they started digging deeper into why and whatever. A lot of women look at the risk different than how the man looks at it, right? And even spending money and all of that. So, and I think brings a lot of the contribution is very high, but a lot of people don't see that, and I think we'll keep seeing much of that as we progress and move forward. And I think one thing that is still actually based on this study and lots of other studies, and based also on my experience, when it comes to the startup world or like venture capital world and all that, a lot of there is a big gap between investments that go to women founded startup versus male funded startup, and I think there is a lot of work to be done there, especially in this part of the world, in this region as well, where to compensate for that gap.
So do you think the natural inclination is to sort of lean towards a male led startup? Yeah. Because that's where they're comfortable, as opposed to a female.
That's what they understand, because there's a lot of male in the VC world as well. So they tend to because a lot of it is through network and who you know and how you who opens the door for you to have that meeting and to pitch your company. So I think because of that, there is still an imbalance. I feel like a lot of women, and I put myself in that basket as well, we're very shy into getting ourselves out there and knocking into doors and so on. Like you try to build and you try to show them through your work, like, okay, look at me, I'm here, this is what I'm doing, versus like going and knocking doors and being more aggressive, right? That is missing. And I think that's one of the reasons. And it's also honestly, still I don't have enough information to say what is the reasoning I can think of. But I believe it's more in the connection side, the networking, and the fact that a lot of VCs are run by men still till date, not just in this region, also in the Western world too.
And look, if there are certain jobs that are probably dominant towards one sex or the other, right? Like even for my line of work, we do a lot with HR. HR is typically female-led, right? And again, I always use this as an example because I don't think when I find a male HR person, do I ever go to my client and say, I have a guy, like he's a man and he's like a chief HR or he's a VP of HR or a chief people officer or a head of people, right? I don't label them as a man because they are the minority in that field, right? So again, it always triggers me when I'm just like, why are we labeling the founder as a female founder because they're the minority, because there aren't many female founders out there or there aren't many females in big tech, okay? Why are we doing this? Because it kind of bugs me because I don't do it on the reverse. I don't feel like I have to do it on the reverse. And HR is dominant by females.
It is, yeah.
Okay, I would say 80% minimum, when it comes to, especially as they work through the ranks. And granted, I know 24 sort of male HR operators who are fantastic at that sort of senior level. Of
course.
But I know, 150 female HR contacts of mine who have been doing it for a very long time and are also good. And if I put them towards a client and said, we work with your role, right?
Yeah.
I never once heard you say, it needs to be like this, it needs to be like this. Like they need to be male because of my culture, or they need to be female because they need to be able to handle certain intricacies of my business. We placed someone there 8 months ago, right? Ended up being a female. You got a variety of different choices.
Many,
and you interviewed them all. Yeah. And the selection should be based on your skill set, your achievements, your career, your personality, what you can do.
Personality is number one, especially when it comes to like the HR department.
Especially, right?
That's what I was looking for. It didn't matter if it was a woman or a male. It was number one, their experience. They worked with startup before. They know how startup culture works and how to actually build a startup culture, because they help you. That specific department will play a big role in helping you build your culture as you build your company and your startup. So it doesn't really matter what their sex is. It mainly about their past experience and their actual personality, and if that personality would go well with mine and the other founders of the company.
On the leadership side, getting people like good people in who are leading the people and culture side, the operations side, and surrounding yourself with that. Because I've watched your sort of journey from an external partner's point of view, and seen, especially in those early sort of 1.5 to 2 years, whenever I walked into your office, there were, so many people looking to speak to you, pull you into an office, have a conversation, get sign off and so forth. You were pulled from one side to the other, right? I think you mentioned once you hadn't had sort of time off for longer than like a week, away from the office. Okay. How important is it to you now that you're so further on in your leadership career to surround yourself with other leaders to do parts that not necessarily that you can't do, but you just don't have the time to do? And what advice would you give to leaders who are very controlling, who feel like, even to this day, I know really good business operators who run amazing businesses, but feel like they have to be the rubber stamp on everything and nothing can be done the way that they do it, so they'll never let it go. What's your advice to those sort of people?
Well, I was that person.
So you caused the problems that I was witnessing when people were pulling you from pillar to post.
Yes, of course. Okay. I was that person from day one.
Yeah.
I wanted to do everything.
Yeah.
I felt that.
Where'd that come from?
It came from, a place of control, perhaps because I thought no one would do it better than I do, not
Yeah.
because of skill set, because I cared and no one would have
Right.
cared more than I do.
Yeah.
So because I care, I will do it the best I can, or the best is supposed to be, that
Yeah.
specific task or whatever. And that's why I try to do everything. At the beginning, I was running the marketing department, I was running the business development department, the product department, tech was reporting into me. I was running HR, like I wanted to do all of this. And I hired people, but underneath me. So, but they couldn't move or make decisions unless they got back to me. And actually that started causing me a lot of stress.
It would have been suffocating.
Yeah, because you had to make decisions, right? They couldn't move without you giving green light in certain areas. And you had many people coming at you from different directions, and then obviously there is so much attention that you can give to everyone at the same time. So you were neglecting certain areas of the business, or things were not moving forward because we were waiting on my sign off. So it was actually that specific setup was I was shooting myself in my foot, basically, right?
Yeah.
Because we were late in certain deliverables. But why? Because the manager was waiting for me to give a green light on certain aspects, right?
Yeah.
And so 2 years later, and I came to this realization last year, and I was like, no, this is totally wrong. I need to learn how to delegate, and I need to be comfortable delegating and trusting whoever individual I'm delegating to.
Yeah.
And if I don't trust them, then maybe I made the wrong hire, and then I should think about who is the right hire that I will be comfortable delegating to. And also, I would like to hire people that know more than I do, because there will be people that know more than I do, right? So it actually will help me in the business grow. So since I came to that realization on my own, of course, I do a lot of reading, a lot of books, and I speak to a lot of people. I was like, okay, maybe it worked the way I did at the beginning because I wanted control in a lot of areas, and it was great. I feel like I built the fundamentals. I built the first 1 or 2 layers. Now to move forward and to scale the business, you need you don't need generalists anymore. You need people specialists, right? So that's when you start hiring people, and that's when we started with the chief people officer, for example, because I was really bad at HR.
We hadn't noticed.
I was really bad at HR, so how to manage people, how to motivate people, and all that. So that helped me so much. I felt like an immense relief, and having someone that been there before, have done that many times before me, knew how to talk to people, knew how to manage people, knew how to spot good performers, even during the hiring process.
How to own that whole sort of part of the business, right?
Exactly. From the operational side of HR to the actual human side to everything. And once I've done that, I did that prior into the tag. Of course, we had I promoted internally actually and head of engineering, so I was not dealing with the engineering team anymore as direct. Because imagine like sitting with QA, sitting with DevOps. Now I sit with just a specific number of people once or twice a week to understand where we are, and stare, and they manage the people underneath them. So I had to come to the realization when I realized that I actually was not helping my business grow when I was totally in control of every single thing. And it's good not to be in control of everything, right? It gives you a mental relief when you know that someone else is there to pick up something when you don't have time, and they are the right people. So yes, it started with tech, and then it went to the HR, and then it went to other areas of the business. Now even with product department still reports to me. There are 5 individuals. I train them in a way, and I delegate to them in a way that even if I go away for a month, they already know what to do, and they have a roadmap for the next 2 years. And they but it took a long time because I made a lot of wrong hires that they were not allowing that to happen. Now that I made the right hire in specific positions, they already know how to do it. They know how to run with it. They know how to work together. There isn't much of a competition. The competition is healthy. It's not about competition between certain individuals that block each other from moving forward. So it took us time to get here. But it's not easy, because now, let's say, for example, if you were to hire a chief operation officer or a chief business officer, it's really, those hires now take time for me to make. It took us a long time to find the HR person.
Very, very long.
Because I know what I need, what type of individual I need and what they have to do. And because it's a startup, it's really hard to find individuals that have done that before in that specific department, in a specific industry, like fintech, for example. There isn't here. So you either bring from outside, you relocate, or you'll have to promote internally, or you will have to bring from a different industry and you have to train initially. So you have very limited resources in that term. So it takes time, but I think I've learned a lot of. I learned a lot on how to do that and how to find the right people.
I think the bad hires comment about when you bring in the wrong person and it just stops you from being able to move forward and execute on your plans. I've witnessed some of the bad hires that we've made together. I've witnessed countless bad hires that clients have made either through different channels over the years. You mentioned something else after that, which was knowing what you needed, really identifying what you're actually looking for. I think that's the one thing I've always found myself having a conversation with a client before anything happens, especially over the last few years. This region has been famous for saying, I need this, almost blind. Like, I think I need 3 engineers. Essentially, you probably need 1 to do the job, but let's just go with 3 because that's what I think the status quo is for what I need to be doing right now. That understanding of why you need someone, what you actually need, is so crucial to the recruitment process, isn't it?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're looking blind. Because if you see 5 or 6 different people who have different and varying skill sets and experiences without knowing who and why you need this person, they can all look fantastic or they can all look horrible. And then how do you make a decision? All right. And the clarity that I think you had was when we finally hired that chief people officer, because when we sat down and you gave me the briefing, it was specific, more specific than you've ever been in the 2.5 years of actually working.
Because I've done 2 bad hires
before. 2 bad hires, so you've been burnt, right? I mean, I have a client now exactly the same day. I'm looking for a practice lead for one of their sort of tech divisions, and they've had 2 or 3 bad hires over the last sort of 18 months. One of them just lasted 2 or 3 months, okay? And they've come to me and they said, okay, we're going to use you for this, and I just need to tell you, we can't get this wrong. And I'm like, well, firstly, you need to stop putting that pressure on the process, because you'll look at everything with a fine-tooth comb too much. You'll look for reasons why he or she can't be right, or why they are similar to the ones that have failed in the past. So you need to remove that sort of emphasis on, we have to get this right, okay, and just focus on the process, on the methodology, which is, why do you need this person? What specifically do you need? Let me go and actually identify and attract these people for you. Otherwise, we're going to be just comparing them to the people who have failed. That person said a comment. One of them came up to me and said, they said something that reminded me of the previous incumbent in the role. And I'm just like, are they the same? People say the same words.
Yeah, okay? Exactly. No, it doesn't.
But they've been burnt, like you said. You had two hires, they're burnt, and now they're like overly cautious. Do I do this? Do I pull the trigger? How do I pull the trigger? What impact does it have on the business? Yeah. Let's not neglect it. Like, I mean, if you have bad hires, it has a huge impact on your business. Massive. Culturally, success-wise, when it comes to revenue, depending on their role as well. Like, so many different things that the time that it takes to go through a process, offer somebody, wait for them to start, onboard them, and then they don't work out after 3, 6, 9 months. It's painful.
It's painful, yeah. And it's more painful where you think about yourself having done all of this and you keep giving them chances.
Yeah, of course.
Because it happened to me in a few areas where deep down I knew they might have been the wrong hire, but I didn't want to admit it to myself. Yeah. And I was still giving them chances. And that was really wrong, because the ones that they were actually very good performance, they've seen, okay, like, why this person is still here. We're like, around, and I wasn't seeing what they were seeing. Yeah. And it actually caused a lot of damage that I had to go and fix, So that's why I'm saying, like, people's department, or like in general managing individuals in startup, and I believe maybe not just startup, any business, it's the hardest part. And if you do it right, you can excel, and if you do it wrong, it can destroy your business.
So what are the tricks? What are the things that if a spotlight was on you? Oh, look, there's a spotlight. Okay, if the spotlight was on you, microphone in there, cameras facing to you, and then someone saying to you, what are the learnings? What are the things that you would tell yourself 10 years ago to say you're going to step into a leadership role, you're going to be a co-founder of a business here, a tech business. These are the non-negotiables. You need to implement these sort of behaviors, these sort of skill sets to be able to be hugely successful. What are those snippets, those highlights?
I think at the beginning, during the hiring process, I think we were fast-tracking the hiring process a bit too much in terms of it was very fast because obviously we needed to fulfill certain positions and I wasn't taking my time doing the evaluation process.
Yeah.
So I had like certain boxes to tick, there's certain criteria and whatever. I was seeing that, and at the beginning also a lot of it was Zoom calls, so I wasn't meeting people in person at that time. So and I think that was a mistake because when you take your time to evaluate that specific candidate in different instances, it's not just the assignment that you give to them, how they come back and present it to you,
absolutely.
where you make them meet other individuals within the organization so that maybe they can pick up certain things that you didn't
the right
do.
Ones though,
the right ones.
Make sure you pick the right ones to actually represent the brand.
The right ones. So and I think that's very important during the hiring process to take your time and not to fast track that specific that process. And I think also whenever you do a bad hire, which is inevitable, like you can't avoid it.
No.
It will happen. It just to go quick to the resolution is firing people. I took my time sometime to fire people and caused a lot of damage. I think if I was to go back in time, I would do that so much faster because you feel it at the beginning. From I think week 2, you can tell within week 2 if someone is going to excel at that job or not. But because I was very busy and sometimes I was in denial and I want to give chances and opportunities to be proven wrong, so I let that go for months.
It's the highest low, fire fast.
Yeah, and it's real. It's real. I was reading, I read about it in the books and all of that. I'm like, no, you have to give people chances to eat.
It's that hope, It's that hope that actually kills you.
Yeah, I have a lot of that.
Yeah. Because you make that decision thinking that they are right for the role, and then you don't understand why they haven't actually delivered, and especially when they're so far off what you thought they were. Right? It's different when they were just okay and plodding along, and then you decide whether or not you want to carry them. But the ones that are just not good at all, and you're thinking, how did I miss this? And then you start second guessing yourself. Start thinking, how did I get it so wrong? And I do this for a living. Like, so this is just one part of your job. I do this for a living, and yet I've had some horror highs recently, 2-3 years ago, where people in my business, I'm just thinking, how did they get through my interview process? That I've conducted probably 1 million interviews in my life, and yet this person got through my interview process thinking, this person's right for my business.
And that's what I'm saying. Taking time during the interview process is very important because maybe meeting number 3 or 4, you realize certain things that you didn't pick up before because, I don't know, you were very excited about that specific individual based on their past experience, or nailed their first interview, or they nailed their assignment, but then presenting the assignment was not great. That means so that they didn't have really presentation skills and how to carry themselves. So that's why that interview process is very important. So now I understand why certain companies take a long time within the interview process. For me, it was like, no, I don't want to be like these companies that they take 2 months to decide if an individual is the right one or not. We're a startup, we have to move fast. So we were moving really fast in the interview or recruitment process that it actually hurts you at the end. So taking your time, and also when you realize that someone is the wrong hire, they failed you at one or two instances, I think it's time to let them go.
That is the trigger point, right? When you have 1, 2 flags.
1, 2 for me, like 2.
1, 2 flags, 2 strikes, maybe 3.
No, not 3. Not 3. Before it was like 3, and then they do
maybe
one
4.
thing right. They do one thing right. You're like, okay, then maybe I was wrong. Maybe it did. It happened to me like 3-4 times within even my own team, like product. But you can tell, and I was just blind in a lot of instances because of hope. Hope, and I didn't want to go through that process again.
Yeah, of course.
And they've already been given access to all company information, or it's things related to their role. You don't want them to walk away so fast with all that IP. It's a lot of things that you take in considerations that stops you from doing what you're actually supposed to do. But again, I don't think there is a magic trick to spot the right individual. Honestly, a lot of times I also think that I was thinking that, okay, unless you try them in the job, you can't really tell, because a lot of people, they're really good at nailing their interview process. They prepare very well and so on and so forth. But then when you put them to, when you integrate them within the work atmosphere or within the work construct, then they fail. And so unless you try them, and a lot of times I believe that certain individuals didn't really do well in their interview process for whatever reason. They're shy, they don't know how to articulate themselves very well. But then when
great performers,
yeah. So I don't.
I've lost count of those people that I know that are horrible interviewers, whether they're junior or senior candidates. They're just horrible interviewers. Put them in their job though, and they will nail it. They will just kill it every single day.
I had a lot of those, or they didn't have past experience related to that specific job. So we did a lot of those hired at the beginning, because it was during COVID, and of course we didn't have a big budget in terms of hiring. So I brought in a lot of individuals that they had very little experience previously, or within that specific role, or they were self-taught certain things, especially when it comes to like tech and UI, UX design and all of that. A lot of they didn't study this in university. They're self-taught. I had a lot of engineers that they taught themselves how to code, and they're amazing. They're better than certain software engineers have been doing that for 6-7 years. So, and I was really surprised to see that, and a lot of them are still with us still today. Like, and I'm very grateful for having given them those opportunities. And I always do that because I've been given opportunities where, I didn't have that experience. I moved from business development to product. I didn't study product in university, but people gave me that chance and that opportunity, and I proved that I could do it. So, and I want to keep giving these type of opportunities to other individuals that maybe the CV doesn't look that great, but because they know that they have to prove themselves and they actually want to make that jump and that step, they actually put 200% in their work and they excel.
Do you still put value in people's CVs, or are you now sort of shifting towards the rest of the world with this slight sort of shift where the CV is no longer as important and now a LinkedIn profile or this social media presence is enough?
Yes and no, I would say, because CV, for example, that's what comes first. You haven't met the person yet. You didn't Google about them or nothing. The CV is what you look at. So most of the time, if there isn't the right whatever skill set that you're looking for, experience that you're looking for, you move on into the next one. And now a lot of also selection for interview process is done by systems. It's not even a person looking at the CV anymore. So the CV needs to have the right words for the system to pick for the matcher, right? So it is sort of still important. But that's why this is only if you apply or you go through the traditional methodology rather than someone being introduced. So if it's through an introduction, it's through the network, then yes, the CV, you won't even look at it. You want to understand, you want to hear the person, you want to meet the person, you want to talk to the person, you'll check the LinkedIn profile, you check how active they are in the business world, and then the CV comes later just as an admin task, right? So I feel like it depends on, and how big is the company, because this second approach of meeting the person directly or through referrals, so on and so forth, works when the company is still small. Even at our stage today, which is like medium, I think that still works. But when it's a scale up, when you have 200, 300, 400, 500 team members, now it's really hard to enter through that referral process. It's going to be through a traditional methodology. So yes, the CV matter and how it's structured. And I believe the CV has to tell a story. Okay. A lot of CVs don't tell the story. You need to look at the CV. You need to already understand, who is this person? So it would be very important moving forward and how to stand out from this, to write a story, right? And by writing a story means that if you are a salesperson, for example, then you should talk about how you made it in the sales field. How did you start? Your numbers. It should be more bullet points and what motivates you to where that. So so if I read it, I'm like, okay, I can create already an image of who this person is and what's their story and how they got here. Not like, okay, I worked at this company and I did X, Y, Z, and now I moved on to the next company. I feel like a lot of CVs look like that.
I'm going to use that CV being a story. I'm going to write something on LinkedIn. It's going to get thousands of likes.
Okay.
This podcast is going to air like weeks later. And you're like, oh, look, she just copied him.
I can give you some great insights on that. Like, and I think that it's important. It should tell a story because that's we're moving towards that. Like, even when someone like their online presence, whether it be LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, they are telling a story about who they are through their writing. They can write about anything, but based on their writing skills or what they're talking about or which topics they pick, that tells a lot of what they stand exactly tells a lot about them. Right? So, and I think it will move more and more towards that, given all information and bubble that we live in right now.
Do you enjoy the PR side of things when it comes to the storytelling for yourself, your own personal brand, company brand, things that you represent in the region, like the podcast, being guests on the different podcasts, seeing, like an interview published on any sort of magazine, things like that. Is this the part that you enjoy, or is something that it's part and parcel of your role and you have to do it to be out there, to be visible?
Yeah, to be honest, I enjoy telling Cashew story to the public so they get to know more about us. But yeah, it's not something that I enjoy doing in terms of going to public speaking events or
panels
PRs
and so forth,
or
right?
panels. I don't know, because as I said, I'm a very introvert person. I feel like, it's a lot about me. I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about the company, what we're building, and what value we're creating in the ecosystem. So, but a lot of time ends up being about you, because people want to know who is the person behind this, who are the people that build this, because they want to relate to you. So I had to do a lot of work in terms of understanding that you have to go out there because your story matters, because someone will relate to you, and you never know who will listen to your story and be inspired to go and do their own thing. I think that is important, but I'm still learning and I'm still putting myself out there in terms of understanding how I should navigate this, because to be honest, that's not something I enjoy doing. I like building. I like to be in the office of the team. I like to post-it notes. I like to do all of that. I'm not because it's a full-time job. That's why you see a lot of startup companies, the big ones that not startup anymore, like, I don't know, in the likes of Meta or Airbnb or whatever, the founders now are just public. That's their job, to represent their company with the media outside.
The brand spokespeople, right?
Exactly, and they build that brand, and they go through a lot of training, meticulous training, right? So we don't have that. This is who we are. That's who I am. They go through a lot of that in terms of how they should speak about their company, how they should represent their company. That's all they do. It's a full-time job. So but because they have now teams and the companies are big enough, but for us it's not. We still have to do our actual job, which is running a business. So it's just really hard to do that. Well,
look, for an introvert who doesn't enjoy it, you do an amazing job doing it. I mean, I've seen your podcast. I always send you links when I see the post about you on the LinkedIn. So, look at you getting more publicity. So, and you've been fantastic today. It's been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it too.
It's been brilliant. Thank you.